Hello, hello, and welcome to the My Sugar-Free Journey podcast. We got a fantastic episode today. Today we're talking to Tracee, and I forgot to ask how you pronounce your last name. How do you pronounce that?
I went from Johnson to Gluhaich. It's high chair, glue, and then high chair without the air.
I apologize. That was one of always on my list of things to do before a guest comes on is make sure I know how to pronounce your name, and I just didn't with you. So I apologize about that. But Tracee is the author of the #1 new release, No Frickin' Way, 21 Days to Ditch the Diet, Lose Weight, the Keto Way by Loving Yourself to Health. She's also a certified holistic health coach, a personal trainer, and a teacher of a wide variety of group fitness classes from boot camp to yoga. So Tracee, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, I'm super excited for being here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you're very welcome. Yes, I was very excited to get you on because of a couple things that you focus on. So we're going to get into that in just a minute. But first, I want to kind of find out a little bit about you. You know, what's your background like? How did you decide you wanted to start helping people lose weight and regain their health? And what was that journey like?
Well, it kind of started out as a chronic dieter. From a very young age, I was always in this quest for being skinny because for two reasons. Number one is I thought that skinny meant that I was more lovable. And that comes back from like my dad and mom getting a divorce and all that. And then my two best friends growing up were really skinny, and I always wanted to be that. But, you know, here I am, a curvy Sicilian girl, and it just was a struggle for me. And I've never been like obese or anything, but I just was never satisfied with my appearance.
Right.
And that went on for years, like way too long. And then what happened was I started studying nutrition accidentally in 2007. And I just was like, wow, like all I was conscious of before was calories in and calories out, or points in and points out, you know, from the Weight Watchers mentality. And then I started looking at our bodies from a completely different perspective, more on the disease prevention. And both of my parents have been very, very sick for as long as I can remember, just on multiple medications, cancer, heart disease, all of that. So I was like, when I started learning about nutrition, I was like, wow, like I don't want to go down that pathway.
Right.
So I wanted to change the lifestyle that I was on and that I was giving to my children, and just kind of, you know, do a 180 on that and look at things from a perspective of health rather than just the number on the scale.
Yeah, that's absolutely a very healthy way to think about it, and it mirrors kind of my own journey as I kind of fell backwards into this too, as I was trying to figure out how to not be 400 pounds anymore, and just learning a little bit at a time until I finally discovered that it was possible to lose weight just by changing what you eat, getting rid of the carbs, and it's made all the difference. So then I guess the next step would be to, do the classes, and then you wrote the book and all that good stuff. What was that journey like?
So in 2015, my mom got diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Oh,
and I was not a low carber at the time at all. And I started doing some research on protocols for nutrition to help her. And I stumbled upon a couple books, one by Maria Emmerich, which was the, Keto Adapted?
Mm-hmm.
And also, I can't remember, maybe a year later, the one by Amy Berger, Alzheimer's Antidote.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like helping my mom and trying to get her to do the low carb and keto lifestyle. And she did pretty well on it for a while. But I mean, I was so against it that I had to research the heck out of it for probably 6 months to a year. And I think I finally went keto around October of 2016 and like really decided that this was it and this was what I was going to do. And so I started working with my mom, helping her. And finally she's like, I would catch her eating crackers and bread. And I finally she was like, this is too hard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mom, isn't it harder? She's like, it's too hard to give up bread. I'm like, isn't it harder to give up your brain?
Exactly.
And she finally got so mad at me. She's like, you just are so mean and you're so aggressive and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Mom, I love you. So, but that's how I was introduced to it. I did a lot of research, listened to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books, and finally I'm like, this just makes sense.
Yeah. So I've got a 91-year-old, or actually I guess 90. Did she just have her birthday? I forget what. Either 90 or 91-year-old mother-in-law that lives she's just 90. Yeah, that's right. And so my wife and I were keto and low carb for a long time before we decided to get her on it, and because she was on blood pressure medication and statins, and she was healthy, as healthy as a 90, or I guess at the time she was about 86 or 7-year-old woman could be. But since we taken the carbs out of her diet, she's she had to get off her blood pressure medication because her blood pressure dropped like precipitously. And we were like, okay, let's take that out. And she's kind of going back and forth with her doctor about statins, because no matter what her cholesterol level is, the doctor wants it a little lower, so he won't take her off the statin. And which is crazy, because there's never been a single study on 90-year-old women to determine what their cholesterol levels should be. I mean, that study doesn't exist, and it never will. So there's nothing that he could point at and say, you need your cholesterol levels low. In fact, everything that I've seen would suggest that, the older you get, the higher you'd want your cholesterol to be. But
yeah, for hormones. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So hormones, and just, you're trafficking energy, and, energy is, that's what 90-year-old women need. They need, they need to make sure they have access to energy, and keep those muscles as big as they can be. I mean, that's what kills, once you're over 90, and if you're not suffering from Alzheimer's, that's what really usually kills them, is sarcopenia. They stumble. They're not quick enough to catch themselves. They have an accident, they break a hip, something, and that's usually the beginning of the end. And so anything you can do for an elderly woman to keep their muscles big and growing is an important thing. But we got off subject there. So the book. Tell me a little bit about the book. Why did you write it, and what's it about?
Well, I originally wrote it, to be honest, in 2014, because I was just doing health coaching and personal training. And I wrote it because I've worked with a lot of people who they get started on what they think what they say they want to begin with, and they stop. Life happens. And instead of just saying, okay, well, I decided that I wanted to eat whatever, that cake on this birthday party, they just snowball downhill. And so this was not about losing the dieting mentality and filling your life with so many good nourishing foods and so many lifestyle practices that you're not using food for emotional purposes, for stress or, loneliness or boredom or other reasons to fill the gap.
Yeah, absolutely. So that part of it is the mindset of dieting, or the mindset of weight loss. That's the reason I had you on here, because that's easily the thing that interests me the most, because you can give people the right information, and most people, or a lot of people, if they just have the right information, they'll make the necessary changes and do what they need to do. But some people, there's motivational issues. There's, they've got all kinds of emotional things wrapped up around food, and that mindset shift that needs to take place before you can really, take big strides in your own personal health. Sometimes that's a big bridge to cross.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really asking a lot of them. I mean, I cannot tell you the number of people that I've talked to about the way that I eat, and they're like, oh yeah, it's awesome for you, but I could never give up bread, or I could never give up cookies, or whatever. And they're right. I mean, they couldn't, because they don't have, it's not in their mindset isn't right. So let's talk about you and your clients. If you've got a client that has sought you out, or just read your book or whatever, and they're looking to make these changes, you've given them the right information, they're resistant to it. How do you start walking through how to change their mind and their mindset?
Well, the first thing is to figure out where you've been to get to where you are now.
Right.
What excuses have you told yourself, or what false beliefs about yourself have you believed, So it's all about looking back to look forward, but we only want to do that for a minute, right? Because we cannot change what happened then, and we want to put our mindset on where we want to go. But we have to go there just for a minute so we can destroy it, right? So the first thing is, I always say, write your story to where you are today, like all of the juicy details, and then read it, feel it, process it, so that you can just feel that emotion instead of stuffing it away, and then burn it, shred it, and get rid of it. So it's gone for good. But you need to put emotion behind all of it, so that, because so often, I'm sure you would agree, that so often we stuff our emotions instead of feeling them. And until we feel them and process them and release them, they're always stuck, and they're always going to come up again. Mm-hmm. So that's step one. And then step two is, okay, now that that's gone and the world is, you can just wave a magic wand. What do you want? So what exactly do you want? Look into the future a year from now. And if you could just have anything in your life, feelings, tangible things, relationships, everything, your perfect life, what would that look like? And write it down. Mm-hmm. And then step three is, okay, so this is all the things that you want. Well, why do you want it? How is it going to make your life better? Because you need to attach a reason behind a tangible thing. So like, oh, I want to lose weight. Well, why? How is that going to make your life better? Because that's what you really want.
Right.
The number on the scale isn't going to bring you joy. It's the way it's going to change your feelings. Right. And then the last step is to write down a vision statement in the future as if you're already living it. So, it's July 2020 and I'm sitting on a beach wearing a bikini for the first time in 10 years, blah, 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 and believe it, because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. And it will help you create what it is it believes your reality. Yeah. That's why athletes, my family's always been in Taekwondo, and they are trained to visualize breaking the board or breaking the bricks, or that just visualize that you're doing it. So that's kind of where I get them started. And that vision, I believe they need to read it every morning when they first get up, before their head is on email, or, it's all distorted from the busyness of the day, and at bedtime before you go to bed, along with gratitude. Because when we celebrate the gifts that we already have, the giver's going to want to bring us more.
That's good. I was a pastor for 20 some odd years, and one of the most helpful books that I ever read about what motivates people was a book called Desiring God by John Piper. You've probably never heard of it. It's very, very much a niche book. But one of the things that he lays out in this book is that people are primarily joy-driven. And one of the biggest problems for, he was talking about Christians, but for anyone, is he had a quote from C.S. Lewis, is that something like, we're like children playing with mud pies in the street when God calls us to a holiday at the beach. And the idea is that we are so focused on what we want to do right now that we have such a hard time kind of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and finding the bigger joys, the things that will give our lives lasting meaning, instead of the brief momentary joy that that we're feeling right now. And then you get into biochemistry, and this is basically the difference between dopamine and serotonin, that we chase the dopamine, we chase the brief momentary joy of the Snickers bar, just to use an example, instead of that long-term serotonin, that underlying joy of the body that we want, the health that we want, the brain that works when we're 60, the body that can go up and down stairs without grunting, groaning, or get up off the the couch without pulling a muscle or whatever. And it's that, I think probably the biggest challenge that most of us face is getting away from the dopamine, getting away from the brief momentary highs, and getting our eyes set on the joy, on that serotonin, on that long-term boost that long-term joy that comes from really meeting a goal and having a life and having a body that we really, really want. And it's hard to do. It's hard to do. And you have to, play all these mental tricks with yourself and really think about, you really, a lot of times, play games with yourself in order to get, because we're so used to the dopamine, and dopamine feels so good, whether it be from staring at our phones or, wasting time playing video games or wasting time, whatever. And instead of taking the joy of the long-term view, it's a hard thing to get people into that place.
Well, it's about mindfulness too, right? So in your right mind, would you scarf down a whole pizza, or do you do it? Like for me personally, I mean, I've done where I'll go to Trader Joe's and buy one of those big bags. I mean, I haven't done it for a long time because now I know that that's a problem, but I've scarfed down 3/4 of a bag of macadamia nuts and going, oh my God, that's like almost gone.
Right.
And so, yeah, I totally hear what you're saying and agree with all of it. And that's why like the gratitude thing's so important, right?
Right.
So you have two people and one of them's like, well, so I always use this example. You have two kids. You give them each the same sweater. Mm-hmm. One of them is like, oh, it's too itchy and it's the wrong color and a sweater. Come on, Mom. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, you give the same sweater. Oh, I love it. It's going to keep me so warm. Thank you for your thoughtfulness, Mom. Which one are you going to want to give more to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had a kid like that, the middle son, who just, no matter what you gave him, he was like, if it wasn't exactly what he wanted in the right color, he was just not grateful. And I would cringe when, for Christmas or whatever, we take him over to the grandparents, like, oh gosh, I hope didn't blow up in my face. And it blew up in my face, more often than it didn't. We really had to talk to him and tell him, if you can't at least be thankful for the gifts that you're getting, can you please learn how to fake it? I mean, please, something. You're killing me here. And he never did quite learn how to do that.
How old is he now?
Well, now he's got kids of his own. So now he's like, he's 25 or 6, I think. So I'm waiting to see signs of this in the grandkids. So I hope it skips a generation or something.
Yeah, I have one of those. It's like no matter what I say, it's the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, really? Come on, like, don't be so sensitive.
There's a quote by Shakespeare. There's nothing good or bad that thinking makes it so. That you have really the power, to decide what's good and bad in your life, and you have the power to be thankful for it. And I think that's an important thing, that we're not trapped by the whims of the universe, that we have the power within us to kind of create our own reality. I know that sounds like, kind of the secrety BS, but it's true that you have an incredible amount of power to affect your world, and the things around you that you want to affect change in. And it's almost always mindset issues. If you can fix your mindset, you can fix almost anything.
Yeah. And don't get stuck in the mud. I believe, like, I teach fitness classes and I'll give them a really hard challenge. And I'm like, one of my favorite quotes is, your body can do it. It's your mind you have to convince.
Right.
Just like with fasting, think about that.
Oh, yeah.
I did a 3-day fast. That's my longest. And somebody said, well, how was it hard? I'm like, mentally it was harder than it was physically. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels good.
Mm-hmm. At the end of it. And that's something else I've always tried to teach my kids, is you need to do something, anything. And I don't even care what it is, but something that makes you want to quit, and then you don't quit. You need to get into the habit of that. Go do something hard. It doesn't matter if it's, running a marathon or, bench pressing, 500 pounds or, something. Set some goal that's hard to accomplish. And then every time you want to quit and stop, don't quit. And then just get yourself into that habit of not quitting and not stopping. And it's a lesson I've had to take from my own life, because as many important things that I've done for my health over the years, the one thing that I have just so much difficulty doing is the exercise part of it. Like, there's things I want to do, exercise. I want to spend, half an hour a day exercising or whatever. But I also want to, when I get home from work, not do anything. And that next aspect of it, of, okay, I don't want to do this, so I need this is what needs to happen. That's where the resistance is, and if you overcome resistance, good things happen on the other side of it.
Well, have you thought about doing it in the morning before work, before any excuses can get in your way?
Yeah, so the problem here is that I work from 4 a.m. to noon, and so I roll out of bed, throw on clothes, and walk out the door bleary-eyed. My eyes usually don't even work sometimes till I get in the car and start looking it around. So it has to be
early.
It has to be noon, and that's when I fast. So I fast 4 a.m. to noon. I fast in the morning, and then when I get home, I'm like, it's food time, and then you eat, and then you don't want to exercise after you eat, and then I go in and start my day, and carving out that time and all the little tricks I used to play on myself to exercise since I've started this new shift, it's been a little more difficult, but yeah, I'll figure it out. I'm sure.
Well, my tips for exercise is find something you love to do that you look forward to doing it. So the days that you don't want to get out of bed, that you, like, I have a workout partner. And so this morning we lifted weights, and it was hard for me to get up. I was tired. So I pushed snooze once, but then it's like, okay, no, I cannot be late for her. Sometimes we'll give up on ourselves, or we'll flake on ourselves, but we won't usually flake on somebody else.
So the most important things in life happen in community. So, and I believe that with all my heart. So if you have a community, if you have someone else that you're accountable to, someone else that you're, moving through life with, that you're accountable to for these different aspects of your life, that's probably the best motivator for all of us.
Yeah.
So I want to talk also a little about what you're dealing. Let's talk about the exercise aspect of it. When you've got a new client, what are you wanting them to do? What are you wanting them to accomplish with exercise?
Okay, so this is a biggie for me. Mm-hmm. I believe that too many people are stuck in the old dogma about fat burning cardio.
Yeah. Okay.
And I see it day in and day out. I've been teaching at my gym for like over 9 years. And I see girls doing the same classes, or guys, over and over and over. And they're loyal, they're dedicated, they work hard, but they stay the same.
Yep.
And so there's a couple girls from my gym that went on my program a couple weeks ago. 2.5 weeks ago they started, and they came up to me this morning, and one of them's like, oh, I lost 10 pounds.
Wow.
And the other girl's like, I've lost 5. And they've been going to the gym. So the exercise has been, part of their routine. Mm-hmm. But, you can't outrun a fork.
Right.
So, but that's one thing I see. So the chronic cardio, I also believe for longevity, to make a point, like your mom, right? The whole sarcopenia thing, that weightlifting is way more important than cardio.
Yep. Okay.
And I believe in heavy weightlifting, like really, pushing. When I work out with my partner, and today, like, I was correcting her form. She wanted to lift heavy, but she was in proper form. So I had to correct her form, lower her weight, and then get her back going again. Because I think people develop bad habits with, improper form. Like the guys that do the push-ups and they don't even go all the way down. It's like, do less, but do them right.
Right. And
you'll have better results. So I think weight training is super important. What I'm doing right now is full body twice a week. And I have an app that I track it on, and I am getting stronger.
Good.
And so you don't need more than that. Some people think, oh, you need a 5-day split or whatever, but I don't believe that, because I am getting stronger, and I'm 53. So I know it's possible, but that's what I think. I think people need to lift heavy. And if they don't know what they're doing, get a trainer or somebody to help you so you don't have improper form and get injured, because that sucks. And focus on the weights first, and then find other things that you like to do that are fun. Like I love teaching and taking boot camp classes, because there's a big group of us, and we, support each other, and, it's the tribe thing, right?
Right.
But I always say, find things you love, because everybody likes different things, so, but the 2 days a week weightlifting, I think, should be non-negotiable, just for, bone health, joint health, muscle health. And if it's about appearance, I mean, it just looks good, to have some lines and definition.
So for the listeners, for those of you that are lifting and you want to read a book possibly where, you can think about your form, I highly recommend Starting Strength by Mark Ripito. It's a fantastic book. He has a bunch of videos online, and he'll walk you through exactly how to think about what your body's doing during these exercises. And you mentioned the push-up form. I just read the other day that the Army has changed the way that they do push-ups. Now, when you do push-ups, you have to go down to the floor and lift your hands off the ground before you do another push-up. And I was like, oh, that's a really good way to do it. So the weight is on your chest and your arms go all the way up. So no one, you have to go all the way down to the floor. And
so are they doing like chest push-ups, like out to here, or are they doing tricep push-ups here?
No, just the normal shoulder weight. I'm sorry. I always forget to turn that off. But just the normal shoulder, just outside the shoulders. And so they go down to the floor, lift their hands up, and then push again.
Yeah, that's what I do with the ladies when they don't know how to do a push-up and they can't go all the way down. I'm just like lower, slow, drop, lift your hands, and push back up.
Yeah.
That way they develop better habits.
Yep.
I also heard, you might be able to tell me if you heard this too, is that the Army's not doing like sit-ups. They're doing more plank and core work.
Yeah. Yeah, that was another change that they did, which is good because I think sit-ups are terrible for your back. But unless you've got some kind of a sit, you start pulling on your neck and you're pulling your spine and everything out of a. If your core is strong enough that you can keep everything straight and just pull yourself up with your gut muscles, that you could probably do sit-ups. But most people can't. Most people, they're throwing their feet underneath something heavy and pulling themselves up, and everything's getting out of whack. In fact, probably my favorite podcast interview I've ever done. And there's never been, I've never had another interview that was more transformative than when I had Stuart McGill on the podcast. Because he talks about, he's the back mechanic. So he deals with how to strengthen your core, how to strengthen specifically your back, how to avoid, back pain and everything. And it's all the exercises that he does. It's all core muscles. It's all, it's all, plank and side plank and bird dog and the closest he gets to a push-up is you lay on your back and you just pick your head up off the floor and leave it there for like, a minute. And the top of your shoulders and your head is up off the floor and you're just holding it there. And then you go back down.
Yeah. Like a crunch.
Yeah, like a crunch, but you're not going all the way up. You're just going up a little bit and holding it.
Yeah, that's a crunch. So sit up is when you come all the way up. A crunch is when you just lift your shoulders up.
Okay, so
you're just barely crunching. Yeah. So that's what we do. It's so funny that you mentioned that. Tomorrow at our local winery, I'm actually doing a summer series where I'm teaching yoga lattes, which is going to have shoulder openers. Because, we live in a forward world, right? So shoulder openers, hip openers, core and low back strengthening so that people can have injury prevention and better posture, which will bring about better confidence.
Yep. Then, and that, that posture, because I find myself, and this is how I know I'm not doing enough exercise right now, but I'll find myself like walking and I'll look at myself and my shoulders will be forward. I won't be standing all the way up because my hips are tight. And sometimes when I'll get up from the couch and it'll take me 3 or 4 steps to stand all the way up. Like I'm slowly kind of erecting myself because everything's tight. And, that's one of those things that I have to, have to really, really watch. When I get like that, I have to do a little more yoga and a little more stretching and kind of pull those things, back into place.
Yeah.
And, that's one of those things that's really, really important for me. And I couldn't agree with you more that strength training is probably the most important exercise. Strength training and yoga. I'm a big believer in both of those things. Stretch everything out, pull everything, into place, and then start working those big muscle groups.
And I think honestly, like that women especially will gain so much mental strength by having more physical strength, because mental strength is so subjective and it's like layers of the onion, right?
Right.
Physical strength is okay. Do this, do this, do this.
Right.
You're going to get stronger, you know?
Right.
And then they feel empowered and, kind of a little badass, right? Like I am, empowered. And I think that's important in today's day and age,
Yeah. And again, it goes back to do something hard and don't give up when it gets hard. And anything that you do that's like that is going to make you a better person. It's going to make you have a stronger mental, ability, I guess, is probably the best thing that I can think of. Stronger character. That's probably a better term. And
that's a great one. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, absolutely. Steal it. Do hard things and push it to the point where you give up, where you want to give up, and then don't give up and get in the practice of not giving up. Muhammad Ali, they asked him how many, I think it was jumping jacks or sit-ups. No, it was sit-ups. They asked him how many sit-ups he did. He said, I have no idea. I don't start counting until they get hard. And I thought, oh, that's great. That's a great thing. When you start, feeling that pain, that's when you start. That's when you start keeping track, and then you push yourself. How far into this pain are you going to be able to get? And I think that's an important way to think about not just exercise, but life. Go do something hard and don't give up. Oh, I think you froze there a little bit. So I'm gonna pause this real quick.
That's hilarious.
Oh, no, you're back. Good deal. So you just kind of froze up a little bit. So I wanted to ask you also, since you deal so much with women, what are some of the specific things that women need to do? We've mentioned strength training, of course. We've mentioned diet, but what are some of the things that are a little more specific to women that they need to do to take care of themselves, especially as they age?
I believe that some of it is make time for self-care.
Okay.
So what that would look like for me is like nourishing yourself so that you're not using food as an emotional support. Having friends, a good social circle, I think is really important. Taking time out. Like I feel like I live in Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. And so everybody here, I always call it busy land because they get up early, they go to bed late, they're on the highway 2 hours commuting to work. They have a family, they have aging parents, and they feel like there's not enough time to take care of themselves.
Right.
And I believe that when you nourish yourself and like your inner child and love yourself, that you will have amazing things happen and you'll better be able to care for others. So I get a massage every week. I love to read. So I take time just to go sneak away and read. There's other things. I walk out in nature. I have 2 dogs, and so I take them on walks every day. There's like little things. I sit out by the pool every Sunday just to have R&R. I mean, I have my own business. I'm super busy. I could be working all the time, but I don't let myself because I believe I need to take time off. They say there's a really good book called The Power of Full Engagement, mm-hmm. and it talks about even professional athletes have their off season.
Right.
So why do we believe we need to push ourselves so hard all the time?
Right. Absolutely. So life is a team sport, right? We need other people in us and around us that can encourage us and support us. And, the best things in life happen in community. That family aspect, the friends aspect, and it's more important for some people than others. I used to know a man that he would just amaze me. When I get tired, I want to be alone. Like I just, want to be alone. And that's how I recharge. He was exactly the opposite. When he got tired, he wanted people around him. He wanted to socialize. He wanted to play cards. He wanted to, to be around other people. And, it felt like a superpower that you were able to recharge in the presence of other people. So, I mean, some people are just better at it than others. And I think, it's important for you to kind of figure out how you recharge and then go do that.
He probably took their energy, energy can't be created or destroyed, right? So you can absorb other people's energy, and that might be what he got from that.
It was, like I said, it felt like a superpower because he'd come home from work and he'd be like, you come over and let's play cards or let's, do something. I'm like, really? Because I've worked too, and I don't want to do any of that.
I think that's true, though, because like for me, if I'm tired at the end of the day after work and I go, should I take a nap or should I go outside and walk the dogs?
Right.
I will never regret walking the dogs, but I might regret a nap.
Yeah. Right. You feel like crud afterwards. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So just probably the last question we need to talk about, just because I ask this question of a lot of people. You're on a low carb diet, a ketogenic diet. What are your feelings about the impact of that type of diet, as opposed to low carb versus keto or carnivore or anything like that? What are your opinions on how that type of diet affects your health and the people that you help?
So there's a two-part question to that. My opinion, which I could be wrong, but I believe that this is the way that's better to eat. And a lot of it has to do with everybody's personal tolerance, and you don't need carbs. I mean, I'm proof that you don't need carbs with my workouts and how I can sustain my energy levels, and also the inflammatory effects of all carbs. And inflammation is the root of disease. And my dad's had cancer like 4 or 5 times. All carbs process down to glucose, which glucose feeds most cancer tumors, right? And that's my layman's explanation, but I believe in it. And so that's why for me, it's long-term. But the other thing that I've just realized for myself is I have been very inflamed lately. And I'm like, what is going on with my body? Something is wrong. So I just had a food sensitivity test from a very a really top-notch company in England. And I realized that I have a sensitivity to eggs, almonds. Gosh, I can't remember what else is on my list. I think it's like right here. Eggs, almonds, which are 2 things that I eat regularly. Milk, yeast, chili pepper, cumin, and wheat. Those are reds. Like those are really high and bad. And then the yellows, which are borderline, is like peanuts, coconut, chocolate, sunflower seeds, lettuce, cinnamon. Those are things that I, have regularly. And I'm like, crap. Okay. So what happens is when we have a food sensitivity, we develop something called leaky gut, which I'm sure you've heard of that. Mm-hmm. And that creates a lot of inflammation and can later on lead to autoimmune, which can lead to a whole other slew of problems. So now that I have this information in front of me, I'm like, okay, now what? So now I have to eliminate all those foods. Right. I'm going to do 6 months. Because I'm very serious about my health. So 6 months, none of this, and heal my gut in the meantime with, fermented foods, which I have to be careful because of the yeast. Right. So I have to find, lots of probiotics, bone broth, anything that's going to heal my gut. And then when it's time after the 6 months, bring one back at a time to see if that inflammation or that sensitivity is still present.
Yeah. What you ought to do is, all of those foods have things in them like oxalates and there's probably some glyphosate spraying on a lot of them, except for the eggs. The eggs are problematic for a lot of people because we get the cheapest eggs. If you can find, like I have my next door neighbor, he has chickens and he just lets them run loose and eat bugs and whatever, and then they give him eggs at the end of the day. They're the best eggs. I mean, they are so good, and so much so that it's hard to compare, to think about what he gives me as an egg versus what I buy at the store. They don't seem to be the same food. I mean, they look differently, they smell differently, they taste differently. The difference is night and day. And I've often wondered if people who have egg sensitivities, if it's not the eggs, but it's the crap food that these giant chicken farms are feeding their chickens. Because chickens, they always say like the more expensive egg, it says vegetarian fed on the on the thing. Well, chickens aren't vegetarians. They're not supposed to eat wheat and corn. They're supposed to eat bugs. I mean, they're little dinosaurs. They're supposed to run around and pick up, snatch bugs out of the manure. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do, is they're supposed to pick through cow manure or whatever and pick the maggots and everything out of it.
Yeah, I have chickens.
Okay.
And it's so funny because there's a space in the coop, in the door where I store their food, that every year earwigs, like they must hatch there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go let them out of their coop in the morning, they follow me. And then I open the little door and they go to town on the earwigs. There'll probably be like 50 of them right there.
They
So
love it. They're carnivores. You're
yeah.
supposed to, and that's what regenerative farms do is they'll put the cows in a pasture and let the cows, mess and you put cow patties all over the pasture. And then 3 days later, they'll let the chickens loose and the chickens go through the cow patties and they eat all the bugs and they spread the manure out. So it turns into topsoil and you've got both of these animals working together to increase the yield of your farm and the health of your topsoil, and it makes a huge difference in the quality of the egg that you get.
Yep. I agree with that.
So, I was just going to say you might try carnivore a month or two, and you'd be surprised the number of stories that I get from people who just eat grass-fed beef.
Maybe I should. Maybe now would be the best time to do that.
Yeah. 60 days on carnivore, I've seen huge differences.
Are you on it right now?
So I only tried it out in these 30-day blocks just to try them. And for whatever reason, this 30-day block that I'm on right now, I've seen, I've dropped weight. And I feel better. In the past, I did it, and I didn't feel great. I saw some health benefits, but it wasn't wonderful. So I don't know if there was an adjustment period or whatever. But this time, now that I'm on it, it's been really good. I mean, it's been shockingly good.
That's a great idea. Now would be the perfect time since everything's so restrictive, anyways. Right. I should actually do that. That is a great idea.
Yeah, try that. You might see some.
Tell me, what are you eating on carnivore exactly? Like, are you
sure?
What does a day look like?
Sure. Well, I skip breakfast because that's when I work, and then for lunch I eat either bacon and eggs or sausage and eggs, and I pretty much the same thing every day. So I eat only two types of eggs. One type is I'll fry them in the bacon grease, and then the other type I have coddled eggs because I don't eat a whole lot of cheese or any kind of dairy, but with coddled eggs I have these ramekins. They're like, you know what a ramekin is.
Yeah.
I'll put just a little bit of heavy cream in the ramekin, just a tiny little bit, just enough to like give it a base, and then I'll crack an egg in there, and then salt it heavily. I salt my food very heavily. So salt it heavily, and I'll put a little bit of rosemary in it just because I have a rosemary bush out here that I can't get rid of. And I have enough, I grow enough rosemary to feed, the whole city rosemary. I didn't mean to when I started this, but now it's there and I can't put enough rosemary in things. And a little bit of rosemary, bake it on 350 for 15 minutes, and it's beautiful. It's a wonderful egg, and a little bit. So this my only dairy is what's in that coddled egg, and it tastes wonderful.
It sounds good. Anything with rosemary tastes wonderful, though. Yeah. Rosemary's amazing.
Yeah, I put rosemary and garlic on my steaks too sometimes. So and dinner is whatever I'm cooking for the family. I just eat the protein. So it's either steaks. Like I love when my Kroger puts steaks on sale. Right now they've got ribeyes on sale for next to nothing. I bought enough steak, bought a 3-pack of ribeyes for $10 last night, which I don't even know how it's that cheap. And then, so they still get the vegetables because my wife grows vegetables in the garden, and I just don't eat the vegetables. I eat the steak, and that's about it. I mean, it's mostly red meat. Hamburger meat and steak, but I will eat pork and I will eat chicken, just not a ton of it because my family's a red meat family. That's just what they like, and that's it. And I've been doing it for this whole month. I'm gonna have to try that. Yeah, you gotta check it out, and it's dirt cheap. I cannot believe how little I spend on food for me. It's so cheap. it's wonderful. I love how much money I'm saving on food right now. So tell us a little bit about like where people could find you, your book, you've got a podcast, where they can find you online. I want my readers or listeners to know all of that stuff about you.
Well, thank you. Well, my blog is highenergygirl.com. And
highenergygirl.com. Okay.
yeah, I've had that for a long time. So that's my same for YouTube and Instagram. And I have a Facebook group called High Energy Girls. And then my book is called No Frickin' Way, 21 Days to Ditch the Diet, Lose Weight the Keto Way by Loving Yourself to Health. It's all about filling your life with so many good things that you don't need to use food as a tool to fill the void.
Perfect. And the name of your podcast?
Oh, my podcast, which I would love to have you on.
Oh, perfect.
You're on the spot. It's called Be Well, Be Keto, where ordinary people achieve extraordinary results.
Excellent. All right. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Tracee. We're going to put links to all of that in the show notes. Guys, you can find that at mysugarfreejourney.com/podcast. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And I'm going to get back to you on the carnivore experiment.
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to know. I'd love to know what happens. All right, guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll be right back with a little more information.
Awesome. Thank you.